So, what actually happens when the mission ends? We all know the stories of heroes answering the call, right? From the greatest generation down to the post 9/11 era. But the story absolutely does not end the moment they take off that uniform. How does a grateful nation step up to support the people who protected its freedoms once they finally come home? That's exactly what we're diving into today. Welcome to this explainer on the lives of America's veterans. We're going to take a really focused, comprehensive look at the post-service experience, the triumphs of returning to civilian life, the massive systems built to reward that service, and, the very real, ongoing challenges that still exist. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap. First, who are America's veterans? Second, transitioning to civilian life. 3, a system of earned benefits. 4, the ongoing challenges, and finally, society's role and resilience. All right, kicking things off with Section 1. Who exactly are America's veterans today? To really grasp the support systems, we've got to understand the demographics first. And the sheer scale here is massive. Heading into 2026, we are looking at roughly 17 million living U.S. veterans. That's a solid 6% of the entire adult population. But the landscape is shifting. Projections show that number dropping to around 13 million by 2040, mostly just due to older generations naturally passing away over time. So who actually makes up that number right now? Well, the face of the American veteran is constantly evolving. Today, veterans from Vietnam and earlier conflicts still make up a huge chunk of the older demographic. But on the flip side, Gulf War and post-9/11 veterans are a younger, rapidly growing proportion of the community. And while they live in literally every single state, you're going to find huge concentrations in California, Texas, and Florida. It's also an incredibly diverse group, men and women representing all racial and ethnic backgrounds. Moving on to Section 2, transitioning to civilian life. This brings us to a massive pivot point, taking off the uniform. 250,000. Think about that number for a second. That is roughly how many service members separate or retire from the military every single year. 250,000 people navigating a totally monumental life change, searching for civilian jobs, moving their families, and basically redefining their entire daily routines from scratch. But, behind that giant 250,000 metric are individual, human stories. Leaving the military isn't just a career change, it is a profound shift in identity. One post-9/11 veteran put it so perfectly. They said, "I served because I believed in something bigger than myself." Retirement, it's not really retirement, it's just a new battlefield. So the really crucial thing to understand here is that this transition comes with incredible strengths, but also very real hurdles. On one hand, veterans bring absolute top-tier leadership, discipline, and technical skills to the table, which, by the way, helps drive an incredibly low unemployment rate of around 3.5%. So many just absolutely thrive. But on the flip side, they face unique hurdles. Things like trying to translate highly specialized military jargon into civilian resume terms, readjusting to family dynamics, and of course, battling invisible wounds that you just aren't going to see on a standard job application. Which leads us to Section 3, a system of earned benefits. To help with all of this, the U.S. government provides a genuinely massive commitment across 6 main pillars. Let's just run through them quickly. First, healthcare, covering everything from major surgeries to mental health through the VA, TRICARE, and community care networks. Then, disability compensation, which gives tax-free monthly payments based on a specific 0 to 100% rating. Third, pensions and aid for wartime vets with limited incomes. Fourth, education. The famous GI Bill is huge here for college and vocational training. Fifth is housing, offering those amazing VA home loans and critical homeless support. And finally, employment and other benefits, like federal job preference and vocational rehab. It's an incredibly comprehensive safety net when you look at the whole shebang. But it's not perfect. Section 4, the ongoing challenges. Despite all those supports, we have to talk about the reality that not every veteran feels fully taken care of. It's often a tale of two entirely different worlds. For folks already inside the system actively getting VA care, satisfaction is actually really high. They get robust treatment for service-connected issues and expanding options like telehealth. But for those on the outside trying to break in, it can be agonizing. We're talking massive bureaucratic bottlenecks with claims, ridiculously complex enrollment, long wait times, and really serious access gaps, especially if you live out in a rural area. And those gaps in access, they can have devastating consequences. 6,400. That is the approximate number of veterans who tragically die by suicide every single year.
It's a sobering, heartbreaking reality that demands absolute attention from all of us.
When we dig into that tragedy, a really stark pattern emerges. Roughly 60% of veterans who die by suicide were not in recent VA care. 60%. That makes it painfully clear why reaching out to unconnected veterans is literally a life or death mission. Add to that the fact that tens of thousands of veterans experience homelessness, which drastically spikes suicide risk. Connecting these vulnerable folks to the care that actually exists is absolutely crucial.
A veteran advocate summed it up perfectly, saying, "The VA does incredible work for many, but the system can be overwhelming. We need faster claims processing and better community integration." I think that completely hits the nail on the head. It perfectly captures that friction between our deep national gratitude and, frankly, the imperfect execution we're still trying to fix. Which brings us to our final part today, Section 5, Society's Role and Resilience.
Because here's the thing. Where the government's reach ends, it is up to communities to step in. And this is where the story gets so incredibly inspiring. Nonprofits, like the Gary Sinise Foundation and Wounded Warrior Project, they are stepping up big time to fill those critical gaps. You've got employers who aren't just hiring veterans out of charity. They're actively hunting for veteran talent because they know the immense value these folks bring. Local communities are hosting welcome home events and building memorials. And maybe most importantly, just look at the veterans themselves. They are showing unbelievable resilience in civilian life, starting up thriving businesses, mentoring kids, running for office. They just keep on leading and serving.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a direct call to action. America's treatment of its veterans relies on all of us, right? Support your local veterans, listen to their stories, hire them, volunteer with organizations that help them, and advocate for better systems. And hey, if you or someone you know needs help, visit va.gov or dial 988 and press 1 for crisis support. Our veterans asked for absolutely nothing in return, but they put everything on the line. So the question I want to leave you with today is this: what are you going to do to make sure they are remembered and supported, not just on Veterans Day, but every single day? Thanks so much for joining me today.